Welcome to Lunchtime Live. Well, while Gibraltar enters a tense period of talks towards establishing a treaty closer to home, it's the everyday issues that affect our daily lives. Getting around town easily, finding a parking space, using the parking machines, cycling safely and breathing clean air. All matters which are being addressed in the government's traffic management plan, or are they? Here to discuss some of the more thorny issues are the Minister for Transport, Paul Balban, and someone who has recently locked political horns with him, together Gibraltar leader Marlene Hassan Nahon. Thank you both very much for coming into the studio today and speaking about this. This that affects everyone's lives. Now, Minister, I want to ask you about something that you once said about changing people's mindsets away from driving. That was your goal, although you always said it was going to be a long-term thing. It couldn't be achieved overnight. But since you published the Sustainable Traffic Transport and Parking Plan 6 years ago, over 10,000 new vehicles have been registered locally. Do you think you need to rethink your plan?
No, I don't think we need to rethink our plan. I think that the plan needs to evolve, and we need to obviously keep auditing it and keep moving with it, because it is a malleable and a flexible plan that needs to be changed and adapted with time. I mean, whether people, at the moment, the mindset issue, yes, that is something extremely important. I mean, I think we cannot achieve what we want to achieve on our own. Neither political parties can do this. I think people generally in Gibraltar need to want to create a better environment for ourselves, for our children, and it's only in this manner that we'll be able to see a better, livable city, which is what I think we all deep down wish we had.
Okay, Ms Hassan Nahon, what are your thoughts about whether the plan is working or not?
I think it's overall a failed policy. The Minister says it's malleable and flexible, but, the policy itself has not been enacted really. It shows a complete lack of vision and planning, interest. We have more than 30,000 people living in Gibraltar, 15,000 cross-border workers. Everybody's driving. There are no electric buses. There are no bike lanes. The traffic situation is a total embarrassment. It's dangerous and it's unenvironmental. And it's all very well to say that people need to change their mindset, but that's why people vote for governments, for the leadership aspect, and for them to lead by example and to implement laws and legislation and directives in order for them to lead a better quality of life and to have a responsibility and an interest over the environment, which obviously we haven't seen. I mean, the cycle lanes are non-existent. The ready bikes only changed from blue to red and then went off. The parking machines, as we all know, were introduced, failed, still haven't been admitted that it's been a fracas. There's no electric buses. The zoned parkings is questionable with a piecemeal situation that we have. And Linewall Road, as we know, was introduced as a closure, not as a solution, and absolutely failed.
Okay, you've brought up loads of things there. We're going to touch on them one by one, if you don't mind, Minister, unless you want to just make a general comment there. But let's go to the whole cycling issue, because Ms Hassan, that ties up with the Green Gibraltar as well. The previous Minister for Transport said that there were parts of the STTPP he did not agree with, and on cycling he said there is no space to have segregated lanes. We saw what happened with Linewall Road. That didn't work out. What's your view on this? Is Mr Darianani right on that? I mean, what's happening with cycle lanes at the moment?
Well, first and foremost, I must say that I cannot agree with many things that Marlene has mentioned. Obviously, I'm not one that will deny the facts, and there are many things that have been mentioned that need a lot of work doing, and the traffic plan is not something you can just, dish up in a few hours or days or years even. This is something which is a plan.
6 years, though, of the plan in place. I know we've had a pandemic, but we haven't advanced in terms of cycle lanes at all, really.
Okay, specifically on cycle lanes, right? Cycle lanes in Gibraltar is something that is being looked at because I am totally confident that we have space to provide segregated cycle lanes, and obviously I think very few will be as passionate as I am, because it's only by providing an alternative mode of transport to people, especially children, that we're going to try to encourage people to adopt a more sustainable mode of transport. But the issue that I'm finding in Gibraltar at this moment in time is obviously the construction in certain areas. So we are planning out routes certain routes which will lead from the frontier to the heart of town and even to the South District. But one of the major challenges is obviously the construction going on at certain times. At the moment, we've announced the great school projects, something very positive for education of children, but obviously that will hamper our plans, because we are running plans alongside that to have bicycle lanes running along the schools, the new schools.
But we have had, I mean, you did experiment with cycle lanes in Main Street. We can still see the little bits of paint still, along. That didn't work out. Linewall Road didn't work out. How sure are you that these next plans of yours are going to be feasible?
No, I don't agree that Main Street didn't work out. I mean, I think that Main Street was not, there was never intention for it to be a bicycle lane. In fact, the reason why it became a bicycle lane as a pilot project was because in discussion with the RGP, they felt that the cyclists was best kept to a certain area of Main Street so the pedestrians knew what their area was and what cyclists knew what their area was. And that, in my mistake, does not work, because what you want to offer is a shared space. Now, a shared space means that pedestrian is always king. And a cyclist comes in, having to look after, they're not the first class citizens on that stretch of road. The whole point of Main Street was that it would offer a safe area in town without cars after the businesses closed. And in that way, parents and children could enjoy, especially during the summer nights.
But that's off the agenda now, is it?
Well, I'm looking at that. I cannot say that is off the agenda, because I think as part of the plans, what I'm trying to do is I don't see any harm in having, cycling. The reason why Main Street was discontinued is because there's a lot of people cycling illegally through Main Street during the daylight hours. That has nothing to do with the scheme that was proposed at the time.
So are you looking to reintroduce the shared space in Main Street?
I will consider, yes, to reintroduce the shared space in time. I'm looking at the whole aspects of it and trying to look at the bigger picture, because this was just a pilot scheme to see how it worked. And obviously there's some differences in opinions on how it worked or didn't work. But after hours, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, when Main Street is dead, and even before work in the mornings, that people can access areas. This is what happens in Seville and happens in many cities in Europe.
Okay,
access to cyclists is permitted out of hours.
Ms Hassan Nahon, your thoughts on cycling here?
I think that when the minister keeps talking about looking at, and it can't be done in hours or days, we're not talking about hours and days here. We're talking about 7 years already. We have an environmental action management plan from before 2014, which talks about the importance of cycling and moving to cycling. We have a press statement from last summer, Green Gibraltar, a sustainable mobility initiative, again, cycling. We have a quote from the ex-minister for transport. We want to show people that life is not about using your car. And we need a proper infrastructure. Now, when you have just a dotted lane that people are supposed to find sometime in the day or in the evening, that's not going to motivate people. That's not going to change anything. And I'm sorry to say that the Minister for Transport is responsible for this. You stood on a green manifesto, which was very beautiful in the front, promising to Gibraltar that everything was going to be absolutely green, and it's not. And unfortunately, it's also quite jarring to see the minister's tweets, which I have a few here right in front of me, reminding people that they have egos, dangerous drivers, aggressive drivers. You can't put the onus on drivers. You have to have an infrastructure. You can't avoid your responsibility.
The government did try the Limewall Road experiment.
They
it was a pilot scheme, but it was something that you had advocated in your manifesto.
It was absolutely different. The government made a mockery. The government marketed it as a closure. Ours was not a closure. It was an absolutely new, innovative, phased approach, costed and designed for a new environmental, exciting way. It was a solution, not a closure. The government came in on a COVID press conference and all of a sudden announced this closure of Linewall, which was completely unplanned, no idea. And we, as an environmental party, didn't take the opportunity to have a go at them. We supported them. We wanted it to work. We had meetings with Vijay Darayanani, and we saw that there was no planning, that there was nothing prepared for this to work as our policy had.
Okay.
Of course it was going to fail. And not only did it fail, but what it did was put people off completely the environmental agenda, made them lose respect for the importance of,
let's
of
go back to the
cycling
minister.
and a green artery.
Are you passing on responsibility to the public as opposed to taking responsibility yourself?
Absolutely not. What we're trying to do is try to encourage the public to behave in different ways. Obviously, by having a car-centred...
Though, Minister?
Sorry?
is that working? Are people behaving in different ways?
I think it's working slowly. I think we are seeing more people on their bicycles. I think see more people walking. I think people are taking to it. I mean, the green areas that we have created have also worked and are seeing people. I think there are changes coming. I think it's slow for me, for someone who wants to do things quickly. It is painstakingly slow, but I think attitudes are changing and people are starting. It's the silent majority.
We need to talk about buses at this point because, of course, public transport is what will help people change their mindset. The buses we still don't have a proper app for the buses. It's still, you can only find it on your web browser, I think. Buses are you're still having to wait 10, 15 minutes in between buses. You did talk in your plan about having machines where you can pay before entering the bus, particularly at Marketplace, so as to avoid delays on buses. That hasn't happened yet. I mean, and we don't have the electric fleet either. You've trialled a couple of electric buses yet. We still don't have that fleet. Ms Hassan Nahon, in your opinion, are the buses where they need to be able to encourage the public to take public transport?
No, of course not. The buses, I mean, they run a good service, fair enough, but they don't work. There's not a mainstream service at night. And also, we don't have green lanes. We don't have electric buses. The government, as usual, with their great press and spin machine, came out with a big electric bus incentive last year. We saw the very lovely pictures, but then that bus disappeared and we never got anything else. So where are we exactly with the bus service?
Buses.
I mean, buses is something that was looked at by my predecessor, and they're quite advanced in. There's two types of electric buses: the larger bus for town, and there's a smaller bus for the inner town. So the one that we're considering now is the smaller bus for the inner town, because there are many issues that need to be looked at, and to bring an electric bus to Gibraltar, which may not be able to run in the course of the day, needs a lot of logistics that need to be followed.
Have these not been looked at yet?
Well, they've been looked at, but this is something which the technology is not entirely there. This is why the upper town buses seem to be a lot further down the line in terms of technology. What I must state, I mean, obviously, Marlene is talking about the night bus. I receive the statistics for the night bus every single week, and the take-up is dreadful. I mean, we're talking about 2 persons take the upper town bus a night. So every night, 2 persons catch the bus. When it comes to the main bus, the main service bus, when the nightlife is rife and people are at Chatham enjoying themselves, we're talking about 20 to 30 passengers a night, sometimes even 12 passengers a night. So what we have to see and see the value to a service, because we need to pay drivers, we need to pay fuel. If people want it, they need to use it. If they don't use it, then...
I'm sorry, we have to move on as time is ticking by. Let's talk about parking. I mean, one thing that does discourage people to drive their cars into town, quite frankly, is the parking machines, which have always been problematical from the very first day that you introduced them. I mean, people were very excited about having them, but they've never really worked very well. And you've talked about problems with connectivity, but really... shouldn't we have better? We should have parking meters that don't have connectivity problems. You go to your shop and you pay by card and there are no connectivity problems. So why is that such an issue with parking machines? And when are we going to get parking machines that actually work properly?
Well, the parking machines that we have at the moment, I mean, we have major issues with them. We have to accept when we have issues with parking machines. We have issues with connectivity. We have issues with the fact that they are solar driven. So when they're not being used, they power down. There's a lot of vandalism as well. I mean, just today I asked, and there are 6 machines that won't accept credit cards today because they've been vandalized. And once they've been vandalized or tampered with, the actual credit card unit needs to be sent for repairs to Germany. And obviously this creates all sorts of issues.
The vandalism has got to be a small part of the problem of those machines. They don't take Gibraltar legal tender, which is a problem for a lot of people.
They do take Gibraltar legal tender.
No, they don't.
They take Gibraltar pounds, they take UK pounds.
Coins, they don't take the round ones.
Euro, pardon me?
They don't take the round £1 coins.
They should take,
don't.
and they're programmed to take the Gibraltar
Sorry, Minister,
pound.
as well. But apart from that, you do have the connectivity issues, and you have a lot of tourists who just don't understand how to use them. There's no real proper instructions for them, and quite often you see locals trying to help tourists. At the end of the day, Ms Hassan Nahon, you have criticised these parking machines. Tell us what your thoughts are.
Absolutely, and it's funny to hear the minister say we have to accept. We all accept that they don't work. He didn't accept that it doesn't work, and they practically lied about it in Parliament. Yes, you did.
You mustn't call
because
me a
in
liar
Parliament,
because the only person who's lying here about that issue. Because
me and all the other Gibraltarians who can't use. You said that 31 out of 34 machines work. Please, I haven't interrupted you. I haven't interrupted you. You said in Parliament. You can accept. The whole of Gibraltar is lying about the machines, and you are right. And in your world, they work beautifully with those white antennas.
No, you choose your words correctly.
I know exactly how to
Don't
use
call
my
me a
words.
liar.
And the whole of Gibraltar knows, because everybody's suffering with these machines, and it's your responsibility. And in Parliament, what you said was that 31 out of 34 machines worked in that day. And if you didn't take the test and you say that it was down to the civil servants, it's your responsibility as minister to make sure that what you're saying is actually correct. Everyone knows that the machines are not fit for purpose, that they are a shambles, and that there is huge discontent, okay? And that is why the next day after Parliament, I took to the streets to test them. And the fact that 2 days after that, we had officials fixing them all over the place is an admission of guilt. They are not fit for purpose, and the company, we shouldn't have to call companies. It's a security risk, and we need proper functioning machines. It's as simple as that.
It's absolutely wrong. I mean, what the lady cannot call me is a liar, because after the question that I replied to in Parliament, I then went down and you thanked me for my detailed response and told you that there were issues with the machines and that I was not satisfied with the way the machines were. No, before
when I thanked you for your detailed response.
You even went out and did
Before I went out, I was polite and I thanked you. My test with people and the way things work from your government.
Let the minister finish
Don't
his
put it
point.
down, because I took the time to do it.
Nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
We're all lying. I live in a parallel universe where the machines don't work and the whole of Gibraltar has been taken in.
We're going to move on from this subject. The final word very quickly, Minister.
It is. It really is.
I want to ask you about road safety issues. Your final word on the parking machines. What's going to happen with them?
Okay, as I explained to the Honourable Lady in Parliament, what we said was that I was not satisfied with the way the machines was working, and now that I have my feet under the table, I am looking, in fact, I'm very advanced in finding better ways because today's technology now means that we may not even need a machine, okay? And these machines aren't built bespoke for Gibraltar. These machines are bought from cities that use these machines, so we cannot say that these machines are rubbish in Gibraltar and people come from abroad don't know how to use them.
I must ask you one very quick question, because this has come up quite a few times, about points to traffic offenders on their licences, a points deduction system. We see that in the UK. Can we expect something like that here in Gibraltar?
Well, there is a proposal for a points system for Gibraltar. So the RGP has been working with the ministry, mainly with my predecessor, and there is a scheme now set out to be able to impose or to be able to use the points system as they do in other cities, and that will hopefully mean that people will be more careful when they drive. Now, there hasn't been a date set for that to happen. But it's something which is already in an advanced stage.
Okay, unfortunately we are out of time. It's gone really, really quickly, but I would like to invite you back, Minister, to talk about green issues, electric parking points, and there are lots of other things that we haven't talked about, and hopefully Marlene Hassan Nahon will also come back at some point. Apologies, we haven't gone through all the things that we wanted to, but thank you very much for coming to speak to us, both of you, on this subject. You've been listening to Radio Gibraltar's Lunchtime live programme. You can head over to Radio